My coworker tried to steal my promotion and almost got away with it until I set a trap that exposed everything in front of the entire office. The office always smelled faintly of burnt coffee and toner, a strange mix of routine and ambition. Every morning, I walked in with my laptop bag slung over my shoulder and a silent mantra in my head: stay focused, stay sharp. I wasn't just working for a paycheck anymore. I was working for something bigger, my promotion. Months of late nights, careful reports, and endless revisions had brought me closer than ever to the chance of stepping up from analyst to project manager. I had studied the job description so many times I could recite it like a poem. Leadership, strategy, efficiency, words that made my chest tighten with both fear and excitement. My boss, Mr. Callahan, had hinted in a one-on-one that if I stayed consistent, I would be the frontrunner. It wasn't a guarantee, but in corporate life, those hints were like gold. That's why I pushed harder than anyone else on the floor. While most people clocked out at 5, I stayed behind, triple-checking data, organizing presentations, making sure nothing could tarnish my record, and people noticed. Some congratulated me, others whispered, but I kept my head down. One person, though, didn't just whisper. They watched. Her name was Stephanie. She sat 2 cubicles over, always with a perfect manicure and a voice that dripped with sugary compliments. "You're such a hard worker," she'd say, leaning over my desk, eyes scanning the documents I was too tired to guard. "I don't know how you do it." She laughed, but it didn't sound lighthearted. It sounded hungry. At first, I thought I was imagining it, the way she lingered, the way she asked oddly specific questions about my reports. But then, during a team meeting, Mr. Callahan praised a small idea I'd mentioned to him privately a week earlier. Except this time, he wasn't praising me. He was looking at Stephanie. She smiled sweetly, nodded modestly, and said, "It just came to me over the weekend." The air in my lungs turned sharp. I didn't speak up. Not then. I told myself maybe it was coincidence, maybe she had a similar idea. But the pit in my stomach knew better. Over the next few days, little things piled up. Drafts I'd left open on my desk seemed slightly shifted when I came back from lunch. Notes I had tucked under my keyboard mysteriously ended up misaligned. And Stephanie, with her too perfect smile, kept joking about how much pressure I must be under. One evening, as the office emptied, I caught her standing by my desk, flipping through a folder I had left out. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh, I was just admiring your formatting," she said, cheeks flushed. But when she walked away, I saw her slip her phone into her pocket. That was the moment I knew this wasn't admiration, it was theft. And if she was willing to steal my ideas, what else would she take? Have you ever had a coworker borrow your ideas and pass them off as their own? The next week felt like walking through quicksand. Every step forward seemed to sink me deeper. I submitted a report on client engagement, polished down to the smallest decimal. 2 days later, Stephanie presented a draft to Mr. Callahan with charts that mirrored mine, down to the color scheme. He nodded, impressed, while I sat frozen in my chair. "Strong initiative, Stephanie," he said. "This is the kind of forward thinking we need." My mouth went dry. I wanted to protest, to say those are my numbers, but how? Without proof, I'd look paranoid or petty. The office had no patience for petty. The whispers grew louder. Colleagues stopped by Stephanie's desk more often, congratulating her on stepping up. She thanked them with a tilt of her head that practiced modesty while sneaking glances in my direction. It felt like she was daring me to react. At night, I replayed everything. Was I imagining it? Was I careless with my files? My mind twisted itself into knots. But then, one evening, as I packed up, I noticed my USB drive missing. My stomach dropped. I rifled through my bag, my desk, the floor, but it was gone. The next morning, Stephanie dazzled the team with a proposal eerily similar to the one I had been drafting at home. Same layout, same bullet points, only a few words tweaked, just enough to claim it as hers. Mr. Callahan's praise cut sharper than any insult. "You're showing real leadership potential, Stephanie." His eyes flicked over me briefly as if to say, "Why aren't you pushing harder?" I clenched my hands under the table until my nails dug into my skin. I wasn't just losing credit, I was losing ground. The worst part? People started believing her. A colleague in accounting stopped me by the coffee machine and said, "You must be relieved Stephanie's taking some of the load off. You looked exhausted. That was the story now, that she was carrying me." I went home that night, pacing the apartment, anger burning under my ribs. I could fight back, but without evidence, it would be my word against hers. And in a promotion race, doubt was poison. That's when the thought struck me. If she was bold enough to steal, she'd eventually slip. And when she did, I'd be ready. The next day, I started small. I left decoy notes on my desk, half-formed ideas with deliberate errors. I saved 2 versions of my drafts, one slightly altered. I watched her movements more carefully, noting every time she hovered near my cubicle, every time her phone angled just slightly too long over my papers. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was pattern. But the question that gnawed at me was simple and terrifying. How far was she willing to go to take what I'd worked for? And more importantly, could I catch her before my chance at the promotion disappeared completely? If you suspected a coworker was stealing your work, would you confront them immediately or quietly start collecting proof? The office had always felt predictable, almost boring. But now every corner hummed with suspicion. I stopped leaving anything important out in the open. My real drafts were saved to a password-protected folder on my laptop, while my desk became a stage for decoys. The first bait I laid out was a market analysis with numbers intentionally skewed. Not by much, just enough to make the conclusions fall apart under closer review. I slipped the printout under my keyboard, left my desk for lunch, and returned to find the paper sitting ever so slightly askew. My heart raced. The next morning, during a team huddle, Stephanie chimed in with an insight that perfectly matched the false numbers I had planted. My pulse hammered as Mr. Callahan tilted his head, frowning. "That doesn't sound right," he said. He asked for clarification, And when she stumbled over the explanation, the corner of his mouth twitched with irritation. It was small, just a flicker, but it was the first crack in her mask. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, planning. If I wanted real proof, I needed more than bait. I needed evidence she couldn't explain away. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Our company had just rolled out a new project management system with built-in document tracking. Most people ignore the feature, but I knew it could be my lifeline. Files left on the shared drive logged every access time and every account that opened them. So I uploaded another decoy draft, this one labeled Client Presentation. Final. I watched the clock like a hawk. Sure enough, at 8:37 p.m., long after most of the office had gone home, my file showed activity, not from my account, from hers. I took a screenshot, my hands trembling. Proof. Hard, digital proof. The following morning, she strutted into the office with a spring in her step, carrying a binder thick with notes. During the meeting, she presented slides that mirrored the draft she had borrowed from me. I sat back, silent, letting her spin her web. And then, when Mr. Callahan asked her a question she couldn't quite answer, I watched sweat bead at her temple. I didn't speak up. Not yet. My proof wasn't just for one meeting. I was building a case, one solid enough that she couldn't wriggle free, no matter how sweetly she smiled. But something in her eyes that day made my stomach knot. She knew I was watching. And if she realized I was onto her, she might not just stop at stealing ideas. She might try to sabotage me completely. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just office politics anymore. This was war. Would you reveal the proof right away to protect yourself? Or wait, like I did, to build an airtight case? The days after my first proof felt sharper, like every sound in the office carried a hidden warning. I kept my smile in place, but inside, I was braced for the next strike. And it came sooner than I expected. We were preparing a joint presentation for a major client, the kind that could decide the promotion for either of us. I poured every ounce of energy into it. Clean slides, detailed notes, rehearsed delivery. For once, I almost felt ready. The morning of the meeting, I opened the shared drive to review my slides one last time. My chest went cold. Half the data was gone. Graphs were replaced with blanks. Notes had been deleted. My file, perfect the night before, was now a hollow shell. Panic clawed at my throat. I scrambled, pulling backups from my personal laptop. My fingers flew over the keyboard, reloading charts, rewriting bullet points. Sweat gathered at my temples. 15 minutes before the client arrived, my slides were barely stitched together. Stephanie, meanwhile, strolled into the conference room calm as ever, her hair shining under the fluorescent lights. She leaned over and whispered, "Tough morning?" "You look flustered." The smirk at the corner of her mouth told me everything I needed to know. During the meeting, I stumbled through my portion. Words tangled, slides lagged. I could feel Mr. Callahan's disappointment, like a weight pressing on my shoulders. When Stephanie took her turn, she glided through her slides effortlessly, her numbers crisp, her tone confident. Clients nodded, impressed. By the end, I wanted to sink into the floor. After the room cleared, Mr. Callahan called me into his office. "You've been reliable, but today was sloppy," he said, his tone firm but not cruel. "I need consistency, especially if you're serious about moving into management." The words hit harder than a slap. I wanted to scream. It wasn't my fault. Someone tampered with my files. But without undeniable proof, I knew how it would sound. Excuses? Just another employee who cracked under pressure. That night, I sat in my car long after the parking lot emptied, fists clenched around the steering wheel. She wasn't just stealing anymore, she was destroying. If she could sabotage me once, she'd do it again. And the worst part? She was winning. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. If she wanted a war, she'd get one. I just had to be smarter. I started installing hidden protections, passwords, backups, even discrete timestamps on every document I touched. I kept my real drafts locked on a private drive at home, only uploading final versions at the last possible moment. And most importantly, I tightened my traps. She thought she was clever, but I was done playing fair. If you knew a coworker was sabotaging your work, would you risk telling your boss without evidence, or stay quiet until you had undeniable proof? After the presentation disaster, I walked into the office the next morning with a plan forming like storm clouds. I couldn't afford another humiliation. If Stephanie wanted to play dirty, then I'd let her walk straight into the mess she'd created. I started small, a mistakenly printed draft left out on my desk, filled with deliberately flawed projections. Not so bad that it looked fake, but just enough that anyone who copied it would stumble in front of Mr. Callahan. I waited, watching from the break room reflection as Stephanie drifted toward my cubicle. She glanced around, slid the papers into her folder, and walked off like it was the most natural thing in the world. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stay calm. It wasn't enough to catch her snooping. I needed undeniable proof. That's when I thought of the IT logs. Every file we accessed in the company system left a digital fingerprint. I called in a quiet favor from an old college friend who now worked in cybersecurity. He explained how I could track file versions and access history without raising suspicion. That night, I uploaded a decoy document onto the shared drive titled Client Strategy. Final review. Inside, I embedded subtle markers, fake numbers, typos, even a few unique phrases I'd never normally use. 2 days later, Stephanie strutted into the team meeting with a new idea she wanted to share. I leaned forward as she projected her slides. My fake numbers, my typos, my exact phrases, delivered word for word, as though they were her genius insight. Mr. Callahan frowned. "Where did these figures come from?" he asked, confused. "They don't match what I've seen from the official reports." Stephanie blinked, her smile faltering for the first time. She stammered something about late-night research and outside sources. But I sat silent, pulse pounding, because I wasn't ready to strike yet. Later, I checked the system logs. There it was, her account accessing my decoy file late at night, downloading it, copying it, I took screenshots of everything, layered them with timestamps, and saved them to a private folder. Proof. The kind of evidence no sweet smile could erase. But I knew better than to charge in head first. Stephanie had woven herself into Mr. Callahan's good graces. If I confronted her too early, she'd spin it as paranoia. No, I had to bide my time until the stakes were high enough that when I revealed the truth, there'd be no way for her to recover. And those stakes were coming. The final decision for the promotion was only weeks away. So I waited, holding my proof close, pretending not to notice as she strutted through the office, confident that I was losing ground. But behind my calm expression, a storm was building. She had no idea I was about to turn her entire game upside down. Would you reveal the proof immediately to protect yourself? Or wait until the promotion decision to expose her publicly? The office buzzed louder with each passing day as whispers about the promotion circled the floor. Some said Stephanie was a lock. Others believed I still had a chance. Every glance from my coworkers felt like a silent judgment. Who deserves it more? Stephanie played her role perfectly. She brought coffee for the team, stayed late just long enough for people to notice, and dropped casual lines about how grateful she was for all the new responsibilities. Her performance was polished, but underneath it, I could see the cracks. She was watching me closer, her smile sharper, her comments laced with warning. And then it happened. One Friday morning, I logged into my email and froze. An angry message from a client filled my screen. "We are concerned about the mistakes in your recent proposal. This doesn't reflect the professionalism we expect." Attached was a document with my name on it, but the numbers were wrong, the formatting sloppy, and key sections missing. My hands shook as I opened the file. It wasn't mine. It looked like mine, but twisted, corrupted. Someone had sent it under my account. I didn't need to guess who. When I stormed to IT, they confirmed my worst fear. The proposal had been sent from my workstation late the night before. But I hadn't been there. Stephanie, on the other hand, had lingered in the office long after I left. Rage and panic crashed over me. This wasn't theft anymore. This was sabotage designed to bury me. One more slip like this and Mr. Callahan wouldn't just doubt me, he'd cut me out of the promotion entirely. That afternoon, he called me into his office. "I need to be honest," he said, fingers steepled on his desk. "This client incident worries me. You've shown potential, but mistakes like this raise questions." His tone wasn't cruel, but it was final. One more failure and I was finished. I nodded, swallowing back the storm of words I wanted to scream. Walking back to my desk, I caught Stephanie's gaze. She tilted her head, her lips curling into a smile so small only I could see it. A smile that said, "Checkmate." But she was wrong. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop glowing in the dark, the folder of screenshots and system logs open before me. My decoys, her access times, her copied slides. I had the truth. But truth alone wasn't enough. I needed timing, impact. If I exposed her now, she might wriggle out, paint me as desperate. But if I waited until the promotion meeting, the moment everything was on the line, her lies would crumble in front of everyone. The risk was enormous. If I miscalculated, I'd lose everything. But if I pulled it off, I'd not only save my career, I'd end hers. If you were in my position, would you risk waiting for the perfect moment? Or expose her immediately to stop the sabotage? The week leading up to the promotion meeting felt like a countdown to battle. Every morning I dressed with precision. Every step into the office deliberate, as if armor could be woven out of calmness. On the surface, I was quiet, methodical, but inside, my heart beat like a drum before war. Stephanie, meanwhile, was glowing. She floated through the halls, her laughter carrying just a little too loudly, her presence marked by the confidence of someone who believed she had already won. She dropped hints about future plans and team leadership, as if she was preparing the ground for her inevitable rise. And my boss, Mr. Callahan, seemed to be leaning her way. He praised her in meetings, asked for her input more often, and even pulled her aside for private chats. I kept my expression neutral, but my chest burned. He couldn't see through her act. Not yet. That's why my folder of proof became my anchor. Screenshots, access logs, the decoy files she'd stolen, all neatly compiled, time-stamped, undeniable. Every night I reviewed it, rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd reveal it. This wasn't just evidence. This was my lifeline. But doubt still gnawed at me. What if he didn't believe me? What if he thought I'd fabricated everything? The corporate world wasn't built on fairness, it was built on perception. And Stephanie was a master of perception. Cass, my best friend outside of work, listened to my worries over coffee one night. "Timing is everything," she said. "If you show him now, she'll spin it as jealousy. But if you show him while she's standing there lying, that's when her mask will crack." Her words stuck with me. So I prepared like I'd never prepared before. I crafted a clean, airtight presentation for the meeting. The real one, stored safely offline, until the last second. I set up redundant backups. One on a USB drive in my bag, another on a hidden cloud account only I could access. There would be no repeat of the last sabotage. And then I rehearsed. Not just my slides, but my reveal. The moment Stephanie tried to take credit, I'd be ready. Calm, confident, undeniable. I pictured the look on her face, the shock in the room, the shift in Mr. Callahan's eyes when the truth finally hit. The night before the meeting, I barely slept. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my folder of evidence glowing on the laptop beside me like a silent promise. Tomorrow, it would all come to light. Tomorrow, the games would end. But beneath my nerves, there was something else. A quiet fire, steady and strong. For months, she had stolen my work, chipped at my confidence, nearly cost me everything. But she had underestimated me. She thought I would fold under the pressure. Tomorrow, she'd learn that I was stronger than she ever imagined. Would you risk exposing someone in front of everyone at the big meeting? Or handle it privately with your boss first? The conference room was colder than usual, the air thick with expectation. Sunlight spilled across the polished table, glinting off the pitchers of water and untouched notepads. This was it, the moment months of work, sleepless nights, and silent battles had been building toward. Mr. Callahan sat at the head of the table, expression unreadable, while a few senior managers filled the seats beside him. Stephanie and I sat across from one another, her smile fixed and confident. She looked like someone who had already written her acceptance speech in her head. "Let's begin," Mr. Callahan said, gesturing for Stephanie to present first. She rose smoothly, clicking her slides onto the screen. I watched as she walked them through her strategy, her voice steady, her tone polished. But my chest tightened as I recognized the content, my structure, my analysis, my phrasing. Even the visual style mirrored my drafts. She'd stolen the heart of my work and dressed it in her colors. The managers nodded along. One whispered to another. A flicker of approval danced in Mr. Callahan's eyes. Stephanie glanced at me as she spoke, the faintest smirk curling her lips. It was quick, almost invisible, but I saw it. The same smirk she wore after every theft, every sabotage. My fingers clenched under the table, but I forced myself to stay calm. When she finished, the room filled with polite applause. Mr. Callahan nodded. "Impressive work, Stephanie." Then he turned to me. "Your turn." I stood, sliding my USB into the laptop. My slides appeared, clean and sharp, untouched by sabotage. I began to speak, my voice steady though my pulse thundered. I guided them through the data, the strategy, the vision. Heads nodded, pens scribbled notes. For the first time in weeks, I felt the room leaning toward me, and then, at the perfect moment, I paused. "There's something important I need to add," I said, my tone calm but firm. All eyes turned toward me. I pulled up a folder on the screen, clicking open the system logs. Over the past few months, some of my work has been duplicated. Ideas presented as someone else's. I stayed quiet, but I kept records. Gasps rippled as screenshots appeared. Timestamps of files accessed under Stephanie's account, side-by-side comparisons of my decoys and her presentations, word-for-word phrases lifted straight from my documents. The silence in the room was heavy, electric. Stephanie's face drained of color. She stammered, This is a misunderstanding." But the evidence glowed on the screen, undeniable. Mr. Callahan's gaze was ice. He didn't raise his voice, but his words cut clean. "We'll discuss this after the meeting, Stephanie. For now, let's continue." I finished my presentation with a steady hand. When I sat down, I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. The smirk was gone. Would you have exposed her publicly in front of everyone like I did? Or quietly handled it behind closed doors? The moment the meeting ended, the managers filed out in a low hum of whispers, some stealing glances at me, others at Stephanie. No one said a word directly, but the air was charged, alive with judgment. Stephanie stayed seated, her face pale, her eyes darting as though she were still calculating an escape route. Mr. Callahan closed his folder slowly and looked at her. My office. Now for a second I thought she might argue, but instead she rose and followed him out, her heels clicking sharp and uneven on the floor. The door closed behind them with a thud that echoed through the room. I sat frozen, adrenaline still buzzing in my veins. Part of me wanted to savor the victory, to breathe, to finally let my body relax, but I couldn't. Not yet. The decision hadn't been announced. All I'd done was pull down her mask. Would it be enough? Minutes crawled by. I could hear muffled voices through the wall, his stern, hers frantic. My stomach twisted. What if she cried? What if she spun it as a misunderstanding? She was good at that. Too good. Finally, the door opened. Stephanie stormed out, her eyes glassy with fury and humiliation. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone. She just grabbed her bag and disappeared down the hall, her steps quick, sharp, almost desperate. Mr. Callahan emerged a moment later. He didn't call me in, didn't make a speech. He just said, "Stay focused. We'll talk tomorrow," and walked away. The rest of the day blurred. Whispers floated through the office, people staring at me like I'd just pulled off a magic trick. Some offered quick smiles, others avoided eye contact, unsure what to make of the spectacle. That night, I sat at home, staring at my laptop, replaying everything in my mind. Had I gone too far exposing her publicly? Or had it been the only way to truly make them see her? The evidence was airtight, yes, but in corporate worlds, politics often mattered more than facts. The next morning, I walked into the office to find Stephanie's desk stripped bare, her chair pushed in neatly, her nameplate gone. The news spread fast she'd been let go. Shock rippled through the team. Some whispered about betrayal, others about justice. For me, it was surreal. She was just gone. But I didn't have long to process it. By noon, Mr. Callahan called me into his office. He was calm, collected, but his eyes held something different now, something like respect. "You handled yourself well yesterday," he said. "Not many people would have kept their composure under that kind of pressure. You let the evidence speak for itself." My breath caught. This was it. He leaned back in his chair. "I'll make my final decision about the promotion today." And just like that, the weight of everything I'd fought for hung in the air, balanced on the edge of a single choice. Do you think the boss will reward me for standing my ground? Or hold back because of the chaos my reveal caused? When Mr. Callahan said he'd make his decision that day, time slowed. Every tick of the office clock felt like a drumbeat against my chest. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind replayed every moment. The stolen files, the smirk in the meeting, the silence when the proof lit up the screen. By late afternoon, his assistant appeared at my desk. "He'd like to see you." I stood, legs heavy, and walked toward his office. The door loomed like a gate to another world. I knocked lightly, then stepped inside. He gestured for me to sit. His desk was tidy, papers stacked in neat order, a pen aligned perfectly with the pad before him. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "I want to start by saying, yesterday was unexpected," he said. "Exposing a colleague like that in front of the team. It was bold, risky, not something I usually encourage." My stomach dropped. Was this the part where he praised my integrity but told me the chaos had cost me everything? "But," he continued, leaning forward, "sometimes bold is exactly what leadership requires." I blinked, hardly breathing. "You didn't just protect your own work," he said. "You protected the integrity of the entire team. You could have let it slide, but you didn't. That tells me something important about you." He paused, letting the silence stretch before he spoke the words I'd been chasing for months. "The promotion is yours. Relief flooded me so fast I thought I might collapse into the chair. My throat tightened, but I managed to nod. Thank you, I won't let you down. I know you won't, he said, his tone softer now. Take the weekend. On Monday, we'll introduce you as the new project lead. When I left his office, the world felt sharper, brighter. The whispers in the office shifted, curiosity replacing suspicion. People looked at me differently, not as someone clinging to a chance, but as someone who had fought, survived, and won. That evening, I walked home under a sky painted gold by the setting sun. For the first time in months, I let myself breathe without fear, without doubt. The road hadn't been fair, it had been filled with sabotage, lies, and stolen credit. But I'd endured, and as I thought of Stephanie, her empty desk, her smirk shattered, I felt no triumph in her fall, just clarity. People like her build their success on shadows, but shadows can't last forever. Leadership, I realized, wasn't about playing dirty. It was about standing firm when it mattered most, even if your voice trembled, even if the risk threatened to break you. I had found my voice, and this time, it was stronger than hers ever could be. If you were in my shoes, would you have handled things the same way, or taken a different path to prove yourself?